When Jerry Lewis walked onto the Tonight Show stage on March 8, 1982, something was different. The legendary comedian who had made America laugh for 4 decades wasn't smiling. Johnny Carson noticed it immediately. The audience noticed it, and what Jerry was about to reveal would stop the show completely and leave 35 million viewers in stunned silence. Because Jerry Lewis, the man who seemed to have everything, was about to confess the one thing that had destroyed him from the inside out, a mistake so devastating that even now, with all his success, all his fame, all his wealth, he would give it all away to undo it. And the warning he gave Johnny Carson that night would echo through television history forever. Quick reminder, if you're watching this and haven't subscribed yet, please check right now. It's free, it helps us tremendously, and you're part of this journey with us. Thank you. The studio was packed. 300 people sat in those iconic Tonight Show seats, expecting what they always got from Jerry Lewis: physical comedy, wild stories, that manic energy that had defined him since the night. But when Jerry emerged from behind that curtain, walking slowly instead of bounding out with his usual chaotic enthusiasm, Johnny Carson's smile faltered. Something was wrong. Jerry's eyes were red. His famous boyish face looked older somehow, worn down by something invisible. And when he shook Johnny's hand, he held on just a second too long, like a man drowning who just grabbed a lifeline. For the first 12 minutes, everything seemed normal. Jerry told a story about filming with Frank Sinatra. He did an impression of Sammy Davis Jr. that got huge laughs. He talked about his upcoming telethon for muscular dystrophy. The audience ate it up. This was the Jerry Lewis they knew. The clown, the genius comedian, the man who could make anyone laugh. But Johnny Carson had interviewed thousands of people over 20 years. He could read faces better than anyone in television, and he could see that Jerry Lewis was performing, not entertaining, performing, hiding something behind every joke, every gesture, every perfectly timed pause. Then Johnny asked a simple question, a throwaway question that should have gotten a funny answer. "Jerry, you've been doing this for over 40 years. What's the secret to staying on top for so long?" Jerry's smile disappeared, just vanished, like someone had flipped a switch. He looked down at his hands. The studio fell quiet, 300 people leaning forward, sensing something was about to happen. And when Jerry looked back up at Johnny, his eyes were filled with tears. "Johnny," he said quietly, his voice cracking, "can I tell you something? Can I tell America something I've never said out loud before?" The cameras caught Johnny's face shifting from professional warmth to genuine concern. This wasn't in the script. This wasn't planned. Of course, Jerry, anything. Jerry took a shaky breath. His hands were trembling. The secret to staying on top. There is no secret, because I didn't stay on top of anything that mattered. He paused, fighting for composure. I stayed on top of show business. I stayed on top of my career. But I lost everything else. And Johnny, I need to tell you this before you make the same mistake I did. What Jerry Lewis revealed in the next 43 minutes would become one of the most emotional moments in television history. But what nobody in that studio knew was that Jerry had almost canceled this appearance 3 times, because what he was about to confess, he had kept hidden for 30 years. And the real reason he was finally ready to tell the truth would break hearts across America. Jerry Lewis was born Joseph Levitch in Newark, New Jersey in 1926. His parents were both performers in vaudeville, which meant Jerry grew up backstage in dressing rooms, watching his mother and father chase applause night after night. He learned early that love was conditional, that attention had to be earned, that if you could make people laugh, they would want you around. If you couldn't, they would forget you existed. By the time Jerry was 5 years old, he was already performing. By 15, He was working nightclubs. And by 20, he had met Dean Martin, and together they became the biggest act in American entertainment, Martin and Lewis. The handsome crooner and the crazy kid. They were making $50,000 a week in 1950. $50,000 when a car cost $1,500. They were on every radio show, every television program, in sold-out theaters from coast to coast. Jerry Lewis, at 24 years old, had everything he'd ever dreamed of, but what he didn't have was a relationship with his firstborn son. Gary Lewis was born in 1945, when Jerry was 19 and still unknown. And from the moment Gary arrived, Jerry made a choice. A choice that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He chose the stage over the crib. He chose the audience over his baby. He chose applause over lullabies, because Jerry had grown up believing that success was survival, that if you stopped performing, stopped being funny, stopped making people love you, you would disappear. So Jerry worked. He worked every night. He took every gig. He built his career brick by brick while his son Gary learned to walk without his father there to see it, learned to talk without his father there to hear it, grew from baby to toddler to child, while Jerry Lewis became a star. By 1982, when Jerry walked onto that Tonight Show stage, he had 6 sons: Gary, Scott, Christopher, Anthony, Ronald, and Joseph. And Jerry barely knew any of them. He had given them money. He had given them a mansion. He had given them the Lewis name. But he had never given them himself. And now, sitting across from Johnny Carson, Jerry Lewis was about to admit the cost of that choice. "Johnny," Jerry said, his voice breaking, "I have 6 sons. Beautiful boys, men now, and they don't know me. Not really, because I was never there." The audience was completely silent. This wasn't comedy, this was confession. When Gary was born, I was working 6 nights a week in nightclubs. I would come home at 4 in the morning, sleep until noon, and leave again by dinner. I never changed a diaper. I never gave a bottle. I told myself I was doing it for them, providing for them, building a future for them. Jerry's hands were shaking, but that was a lie, Johnny. I was doing it for me, because I was terrified that if I stopped working, if I stopped being Jerry Ellis the star, nobody would want me, not even my own family. Johnny Carson leaned forward. His own eyes were wet. "Jerry, you were young. You were building something incredible." "I was abandoning my children," Jerry said, his voice rising with emotion. "That's the truth, Johnny. I abandoned them. Not physically. I was there in the house sometimes, but I was never present, never really there. Do you know what my son Gary said to me once? He was maybe 7 years old. He looked up at me and said, 'Daddy, why don't you love me like you love your audience?'" The studio erupted in gasps. Several people in the audience started crying. "And you know what I said to him?" Jerry's voice cracked completely. "I said, 'Don't be ridiculous. Go play.' I dismissed him, Johnny. I dismissed my 7-year-old son, because I didn't know how to be a father. I only knew how to be a performer." But the most devastating part of Jerry's confession was still coming, and what he revealed next would leave Johnny Carson speechless. Jerry wiped his eyes roughly. The Martin and Lewis partnership ended in 1956. Dean and I split up. It was ugly. It was painful. And I threw myself even deeper into work because that's all I knew how to do. I started directing. I started producing. I made 18 films in 10 years. I worked every single day. Christmas, birthdays, didn't matter. I was always working. He looked directly at Johnny, and my sons grew up without me. Gary started his own band in the 60s. Gary Lewis and the Playboys. They had hit records, top of the charts. And you know how many of his concerts I went to? None. Not one. because I was too busy with my own career to support his. The audience was openly weeping now. Johnny Carson's face showed something rare, complete emotional devastation. Scott wanted to be close to me, Jerry continued. He tried so hard he would wait up for me to come home from the studio. 3, 4 in the morning, this little boy sitting on the stairs waiting for his daddy, and I would walk right past him, tell him to go to bed. I had work to think about, scripts to read. I didn't have time for him. Jerry's shoulders began to shake. Christopher tried to talk to me about his problems at school. He was being bullied. He needed his father, and I told him to toughen up, to stop being weak. I said the same thing my father said to me, and I watched my son's face crumble, and I still didn't stop working long enough to actually be there for him. The cameras captured something unprecedented. Jerry Lewis, the legendary comedian, the man who had made millions laugh, was sobbing on live television, and Johnny Carson wasn't trying to lighten the mood or make a joke. He was just sitting there holding space for his friend's pain. Anthony, Ronald, Joseph, Jerry said, listing his younger son's names like a prayer. They barely know who I am, and that's my fault, nobody else's, mine, because I chose wrong, Johnny. Every single day I chose wrong. He looked directly into the camera, addressing the millions watching at home. I told myself that providing for them was love, that giving them a big house and nice cars and money for college was being a good father. But my sons didn't need things. They needed me, and I wasn't there. Jerry turned back to Johnny, and what he said next stopped the entire show. Don't make the same mistake I did, Johnny. Johnny's face went white. Jerry, what do you mean? I know you, Jerry said gently. I know how this business works. I know how easy it is to convince yourself that one more show, one more appearance, one more project is worth missing dinner with your kids, worth missing the school play, worth missing the moments that you can never get back. Johnny's hands were shaking now. Everyone knew Johnny Carson was going through a difficult time in his personal life. His third marriage was falling apart. His relationship with his sons was strained. Jerry Lewis was holding up a mirror, and Johnny couldn't look away. I'm telling you right now, Jerry said, his voice strong despite the tears, that everything I've built, every movie I've made, every award I've won, every standing ovation I've received, means nothing compared to what I've lost. And I can't get it back, Johnny. I can't go back and be there for Gary's first steps. I can't go back and listen to Scott's problems. I can't undo the damage I've done. The audience sat in absolute silence. This was not entertainment. This was truth. Raw, painful, devastating truth. But you can, Jerry said, pointing at Johnny. You still have time. Your boys are still young enough to need you. Still young enough to want you there. Don't wait until they're grown and distant, and you're sitting alone with all your success wondering why it feels so empty. Johnny Carson couldn't speak. For the first time in 20 years of hosting The Tonight Show, Johnny was speechless. Tears were streaming down his face. Jerry wasn't finished. I'm going to tell you the worst part, Johnny. The part that keeps me up at night. The part that haunts me every single day. The entire studio held its breath. Gary came to see me last month. Jerry said quietly, my oldest son, he's 36 years old now. He knocked on my door, and when I opened it, I barely recognized him. This man standing there was my son, but I didn't know him, and he didn't know me. Jerry's voice dropped to almost a whisper. He said, Dad, I just wanted you to know that I'm okay. I turned out okay despite everything, and I forgive you. And then he left. Just like that. He forgave me, Johnny. And that forgiveness broke me in ways that anger never could. The cameras captured Johnny Carson burying his face in his hands, because I realized in that moment, Jerry continued, that my son had spent 36 years trying to earn my love, trying to be good enough, trying to make me proud, and I had been so busy chasing applause from strangers that I never told him he already was good enough, that he was always good enough, that I loved him not for what he did or what he accomplished, but just for being my son. The studio erupted in sobs, not scattered crying, full body shaking grief from 300 strangers who understood exactly what Jerry was describing. "So I'm begging you, Johnny," Jerry said. "I'm begging everyone watching. Don't do what I did. Don't convince yourself that success matters more than showing up. Don't tell yourself that you're working hard for your family when what your family really needs is your time, your presence, your attention." He paused, gathering himself for what came next. "Because here's what nobody tells you about success. It's empty. All of it. The awards, the money, the fame. It means nothing if you're alone. And I am alone, Johnny. I'm 65 years old. I've made millions of people laugh, and I am completely devastatingly alone, because the people who should have mattered most, the people I should have loved best, I taught them that they didn't matter. I taught them that the audience was more important, and now they're gone." What Jerry said next became the most quoted moment in Tonight Show history. "Don't wait until your sons forgive you to realize you should have been there all along. Don't wait until you're old and successful and empty to understand that the only success that matters is being there for the people who love you. Because they won't wait forever, Johnny. They'll grow up. They'll move on. And one day you'll look around at all your achievements and realize that you traded everything that mattered for things that don't." Johnny finally found his voice. "Jerry, is it really too late? Can't you rebuild those relationships now?" Jerry smiled sadly. "I'm trying, Johnny. God knows I'm trying. But 30 years of absence can't be undone with a few conversations. My sons are polite. They're respectful. But I'm not their father in any real sense. I'm just the man who gave them life and then disappeared into his career." He looked back at the camera. "So if you're watching this and you have children, I'm asking you to do something for me. Turn off this television right now. Go find your kids. Hug them. Tell them you love them. Ask them about their day. Actually listen to the answer. Be present. Be there, because I promise you with everything I have, that 20 years from now you won't remember the meeting you had or the project you finished. But your children will remember whether you showed up. They'll remember whether you were there, and that memory will shape the rest of their lives." The show went to commercial break, but the cameras kept rolling backstage. Johnny Carson followed Jerry Lewis into the green room. The footage was never meant to be seen, but years later it was released, and it shows Johnny embracing Jerry while both men cried. "How do I fix this?" Johnny asked. "How do I not become you?" Jerry pulled back and looked Johnny in the eyes. "You start today, you go home tonight, and you tell your boys that they matter more than this show, more than your career, more than anything, and then you prove it. You show up. Every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." Johnny nodded, unable to speak. "I can't get my time back," Jerry said, "but you can still make different choices. Please, Johnny, please don't waste the time you have left." That night changed Johnny Carson's life. People close to Johnny said he was never the same after that interview. He started leaving work earlier. He canceled appearances to be at his son's events. He restructured his entire schedule to prioritize family time. And years later, when Johnny retired from The Tonight Show in 1992, he mentioned that interview in his final monologue. "Jerry Lewis taught me something that night," Johnny said. "He taught me that there's a difference between being successful and being significant. Success is what you accomplish. Significance is who you become and how you treat the people who love you. And I decided that night that I wanted to be significant." But Jerry Lewis's warning didn't just impact Johnny Carson. The response to that interview was unprecedented. NBC received over 300,000 letters in the following weeks. Fathers wrote about quitting jobs that were destroying their families. Mothers wrote about choosing presence over perfection. People across America made different choices because one broken comedian had the courage to tell the truth. Mental health professionals started using clips from that interview in therapy sessions. Marriage counselors played it for couples struggling with work-life balance. The clip has been viewed over 70 million times across every platform imaginable. But the most powerful response came from Jerry's own sons. Gary Lewis, watching that interview from his home in California, picked up the phone and called his father for the first time in 2 years. They talked for 3 hours. It didn't fix everything. Decades of hurt couldn't be healed in one conversation. But it was a beginning. Scott Lewis later said in an interview, "Watching my father cry on television, admitting his mistakes, that was the first time I felt like he really saw us, really understood what we'd been through. It didn't change the past, but it changed how I felt about the future." Jerry Lewis spent the last 30 years of his life trying to rebuild what he'd broken. He called his sons every week. He showed up to family events. He became a grandfather who was actually present for his grandchildren in ways he never was for his own kids. It wasn't perfect. Some wounds were too deep to fully heal. But Jerry tried, and his sons saw him trying. When Jerry Lewis died on August 20th, 2017, at 91 years old, all 6 of his sons were at his bedside. They held his hands. They told him they loved him. And Jerry's last words, whispered to Gary, were simple and devastating. "I'm sorry I waited so long to be your father." The funeral was private, but Johnny Carson's widow, Alexis, attended and read a letter Johnny had written before his own death. The letter said, "Jerry Lewis saved my life, not with a joke or a movie. He saved my life by showing me what regret looks like, by warning me before it was too late. I gotta be a father to my sons because Jerry had the courage to admit he wasn't, and I will be grateful to him for that until the day I die." Today, Jerry Lewis's warning echoes across social media, through parenting groups, in corporate seminars about work-life balance. His words have been quoted in graduation speeches, in books about fatherhood, in therapy sessions across the country, because Jerry Lewis did something extraordinary that night. He turned his deepest failure into a gift for anyone willing to listen. The entertainment industry still talks about Jerry Lewis as a comedy genius, as the man who revolutionized film comedy, as the legendary performer who could make anyone laugh. But his real legacy, his most important contribution, happened in those 43 minutes on The Tonight Show when he stopped being a performer and became a teacher. He taught America that success without connection is emptiness, that fame without family is loneliness, that all the applause in the world can't replace the sound of your child saying, "I love you, Dad," and knowing they mean it because you've been there, because you've shown up, because you've chosen them over everything else. If you're watching this and you have people in your life who love you, who need you, who want your time and attention, please hear Jerry's warning. Don't wait until you're 65 and alone to realize what matters. Don't wait until your children have grown distant to understand that they needed you present, not perfect. Don't convince yourself that one more project, one more promotion, one more achievement is worth missing the moments that will never come again. Jerry Lewis was right. 20 years from now, you won't remember the meeting. But your children will remember whether you were there. Make sure they remember you showing up. Make sure they remember you choosing them. Because that's the only success that truly matters. Turn off this video. Put down your phone. Go find the people who love you and tell them they matter. Show them they matter. Be there. Be present. Don't make the same mistake Jerry did. You still have time. Use it wisely. Subscribe to this channel for more powerful true stories about the moments that changed lives forever. Share this video with someone who needs to hear Jerry's warning today. And most importantly, don't wait until tomorrow to be the person your family needs. Start right now, this moment, while you still can. Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments and tell us about a time you chose presence over success. Your story might inspire someone else to make a different choice. Because that's what Jerry would have wanted. He couldn't get his time back, but maybe his warning can help you make better use of yours.